One. Guys, thank you so much for watching Tommy Untamed. We have a great guest today with Dr. Roger Hodkinson on Tuesday, March 25th, 2025 at 1:05 p.m. Eastern Time. And Dr. Hodkinson was just asking me about the reach of the podcast, and I was saying I don't really know how it works, and it made me think of one of my favorite quotes. I think it's Calvin Coolidge. Nothing in the world can take place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. The slogan, press on, has solved and always will solve the problems of the human race. And I take that to heart for the podcast because I have no idea. This thing is alchemical black magic. I have no idea how any of it. I don't know why it makes money some months and why it doesn't other months. Why shows get views some months and flop other months. I truly have no idea, and it is indescribably frustrating. But with that, Dr. Hodgkins, how are you doing, man?
I'm sorry, Tommy.
I said, Dr. Hodgkinson, with that, how are you doing, man?
Well, okay is the best description, I guess, in the current circumstances in Canada relative to the States. I'm at heart, I'm an American. I find everything that Trump's doing to Canada to be totally appropriate. Um, we've been parasites on you for decades, not defending the North, not defending the border. Um, not contributing to NATO. We've been having a free ride, and it's comeuppance time.
And then, yeah, it is, and I have several friends in Canada who all kind of say it, so I'm with you entirely. Um, but you've been on here a zillion times before, and we've talked about everything over the years. Really, kind of, I think you first came on in 2020, so we've been doing these for a while. But when you and I spoke last week, could you update my audience on what's going on with you and your companies and all that?
Sure. You sound, am I strong enough, loud enough for you?
Yeah.
Because a little bit
Am I
faint.
quiet for you? Here, I'll turn up my mic. Is
Yeah,
that
there we go.
better? Better?
That's probably better.
All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, thanks, Tommy.
Yes, sir.
Well, there's a word in the COVID world, a COVID casualty. You're looking at one. Um, Uh, our core business for 30 odd years has been serving the needs of insurance companies with disability assessments. And it would appear that I'm not liked in the C-suite of insurance companies. And so that has significantly affected our business. And when that happens, of course, you get inventive. And so that's the genesis of what I'd like to talk about today is a very innovative new service that comes out of the history of the company, but more particularly, my knowledge of medical malpractice and vaccine injuries.
We'll jump right into it then.
Well, thank you, Tommy, and it's good of you to give me an opportunity
Of
to
course.
present this. The company is called Malpractice Check, one word, malpracticecheck.ca. We are a Canadian company, headquartered in Edmonton, Alberta, but the nature of medicine is global. Standards are global. The law is local, and the nature of this service is to provide a direct-to-consumer opinion based on document reviews and interview of whether or not medical malpractice likely took place and the reasons why, standard of care, informed consent, etc. So we've launched that company. We've had some very interesting traction from marketing in Canada, but it is a continental service. And as I said, to summarize, medicine is global, but law is local. And the same standards apply, generally speaking, with some minor differences. So it's the very first opportunity internationally, in our opinion, that individuals have um, access to an opinion on what happened without going through a lawyer with all the expense and risks associated with that. Uh, at a very, relatively speaking, a modest price, which we can talk about. We're very aware that people who've experienced these unfortunate events may be short of cash. And we try to keep the price down as low as we can in order to make that more appealing. So yeah, that's the essence of the service, and I could talk in more detail about how it's all achieved.
No, please do. Because I mean, I know almost nothing about malpractice. I know that like the derogatory phrase ambulance chaser. That's about the extent of my knowledge is a phrase. That's so in terms of like so what's the normal steps? Like what would you normally have to do?
I'm
Like
sorry, Tom.
what's the normal process of malpractice? Like how does
Well,
one go about like let's say I take the COVID vaccine or what or anything or I go get a
sure,
surgery and they mess
sure,
something up. How do
sure.
what unfolds?
Well, before I address that question, let me just frame it in terms of the scale of the problem. In the States, approximately a quarter of a million, 250,000 people every year die because of some medical malpractice event. And that's just the hospital population, not those that experience medical malpractice and die because of being seen as an outpatient by the GP or specialist. So it's a huge problem, and only 2% of those events ever get litigated. Now, for many people, of course, they don't want to sue for all kinds of reasons. They would just like peace of mind to know what actually happened with an unbiased opinion. The real problem is for that large number of people who experience this, the real problem is who do you, as you said, that was the question. What do you do about it? Well, the natural reaction for most people is to go to the internet and search for a lawyer that's interested in medical malpractice. Uh, the problem with that is, first of all, um, you call in, and generally speaking, there are variations on this, but time is money for the law firm checking out what you're going to say. And what they're principally interested in initially is not what happened at all. What they're principally interested in is how much money did you lose? If it's not more than a quarter of a million or so, they're really not interested. It's just not worth their time because it takes a few years for a case to grind through the courts if it's not settled ahead of time. And typically the insurers, the doctors, they fight tooth and nail to delay, bleed you, uh, make it very expensive, and so on. So for that reason, very few cases actually get litigated. Um, People also need to be aware that although some firms do take it on contingency, there's often a retainer or maybe a need to pay for the disbursements that go along the way. Uh, but it would all have started with a signed contract with the lawyer to undertake this process, in which they pay most of the disbursements and wait until the benefit at the end of the day. What most people are unaware of is that that contract implies an obligation to pay if you don't like the smell of their breath, that you think they're lazy, whatever. If you want to go to another lawyer, then there's what's called a lawyer's lien on the file. And he or she will have been clocking their time during this process at their hourly rate. And they will, before they will transfer the file to another lawyer, um, they want you to pay for their disbursements if you choose to discontinue the relationship. That can be quite a sum. And unless that's paid, you'll have great difficulty finding another lawyer because they think that you might do the same thing to them. So So, given that, Tommy, given the reluctance of people to engage in a rather expensive long-term process, what are the other alternatives that people have today, as of today, before our service started, because it is the first of its kind? You probably don't have a nurse next door. You don't want to go back to your family doctor because he or she is the problem or sent you to someone who was the problem. And doctors don't like to snitch on each other, right? It's just a reality. It's a sad reality, but it is a reality. The internet is pretty useless because an individual case is very nuanced. It's very specific for you. Um, and the colleges of medicine who are supposed to monitor medical malpractice, that tends to be a very bureaucratic, delayed process in which you may not, at the end of the day, have the comfort of knowing if a terrible thing happened, because the letter that comes out eventually will be a bit mealy-mouthed. Typically, Dr. X really regrets what's happened. That's not an apology. It really regrets what's happened. And he or she has agreed to go to Seattle for 6 months to retrain and come back a changed person. Thank you very much. Is that sufficient? That's typically how the profession deals internally with people that are um, not really up to snuff. So yeah, that's a brief description of the current state of affairs and how we hope to change that.
Go back to the what you're saying about the total money loss. So is that they want to see how much money you've lost as a result of the injury? So, whatever, you can't work with your hands or your back's messed up, or that's really all it is.
Yeah, not lost income. There may have been other ways in which you've incurred costs because of needing healthcare and all the things that may be a consequence of the malpractice event. Um, it's a very important number, and you can understand the reason. You see, you may never get to talking about your problem, and you certainly there are some exceptions to this, obviously, but you probably wouldn't get to talk to a senior, experienced lawyer about it all. And I'd like to say one thing here, Tony, in that regard, and that is, um, if you've got chest pain, would you go and see a lawyer? You know, um, you want to. It's medicine first, law second,
Yeah.
in that logical progression. And why would you go to the lawyer as the intermediary to determine if a medical event has happened? Because, of course, if a lawyer retains you, the very first thing they'll do is to get a medical opinion um, from someone like me. I don't provide the opinions, by the way. It depends upon the nature of the event, and we have a huge variety of experts who can address different medical issues. Um, so yeah, it's just logical and cheaper and faster to use a service like ours rather than the reflex that most people have of going to see a lawyer.
And then in terms of malpractice, how does that actually like how do you determine what malpractice is and what's just, tough luck? Doctors can't be burdened with fixing everything, every ailment, every injury, right? We are humans. It is, as advanced as we are, we're still archaic in many ways. And sometimes things just go south. They just don't
Yep,
work out. You're
that's
not
right.
guaranteed to a perfect, I don't know, spinal readjust. You're not guaranteed to that they get the entire tumor out. We still, you know, we're not in the future. We still die. That's just what it is, In 1,000 years, maybe we won't. But right now, we still die. We don't have futuristic Star Trek where you get in a pod and it heals everything. How do you determine, or how does one determine a lawyer? At what point do you go, well, that was malpractice? Because to me, the caveman, I perhaps naively think that the doctor probably tried their hardest, and whatever happens, happens. But if you had another doctor around, they might say, no, that guy actually cut a lot of corners, and what he did was not acceptable. How does that even get determined?
Well, first off, we're not in the business of nailing doctors for doing bad things. I'm a traditional doc. Um, we all make mistakes and
Yeah.
regret it.
Well, that's what
Um,
I'm asking is like
sure.
it's how does regardless of I'm not even saying this is what you do, just as an open-ended question. How is that determined?
Yeah. Well, it every case is unique. As I said, we start off with a detailed interview, an hour long, with a professional interviewer who's used to interrogating doctors and nurses from complaints that go into colleges, for example. And then out of that comes the essential issues that the individual thinks happened. And that's followed by a detailed review of the documentation that's obtained from the doctor's office or the hospital, for example. So it's a very detailed, nuanced process, and every case is very different. And more often than not, at this stage, which is really just a screening tool for lawyers or a comfort for individuals, the decision is based on probabilities. Um, a more definitive decision would probably require much more detailed expert opinions if it went to court, for example. And so what we're looking for are the standard things of standard of care. Was it met or violated? Was there informed consent? Um, and how we go about assessing that um, is relevant to you might say, the definition of net negligence. Um, Now, negligence is an activity by a professional um, or non-professional in terms of a duty to provide a standard of care that is reasonably prudent in an equivalently trained individual at that particular time and with that particular problem. For example, for example, let's say an emergency room is massively overloaded and you don't really have enough time to see everyone, and even prioritizing which one you should see next is challenging. Um, in the hurly-burly of that situation, mistakes happen, and that's understandable. And it's not something that you would be successful prosecuting, probably. It depends on the details, obviously. But it's a challenge to weigh all those inputs and decide if, on balance, a standard of care was violated. Sometimes it's very obvious. Sometimes it's not, and it could be argued. Um, and we try to weight that in our opinion, which is not a core quality opinion, but it's something to give feedback at a relatively modest price. We talk about what we perceive from a medical perspective, not legal, from a medical perspective. Does this case have reasonable merit to proceed to a lawyer? Now, a lawyer would very much like to see this. It amounts, Tommy, to about a 30-page report, okay? It's a significant document. And a lawyer could quickly read that and decide if it is something that he or she wants to take on, and is a much more definitive decision point than simply having a paralegal listen to someone with a rambling interview. So it's a very efficient way for a lawyer to cut to the chase about whether I want to seriously consider this case legally.
Then to, you know, provide fair critique to you, why hasn't this been done before? What you're setting up or what you have set up?
Because we're smart.
Fair enough. That's a fair.
No, I mean, look, I got white hair. We've been running this business for 30 years. We deal with lawyers every day. Um, you know, when you've lived a life in a profession, you know where you know what you do well, and you also know where the black holes are, the things that fall through the cracks. We all know that intuitively when you get to my age.
What do you mean
And
by that?
I'm sorry,
What do you mean by that? The black holes.
the the things that we don't do well that no one talks about. Um, and there can be a variety of reasons for that. But one of the things we don't do well is responding to complaints by a patient that something went wrong because
Sure.
we don't like snitching on each other.
Fair enough. Okay, sorry. Keep going.
So that yeah, that's the service. We charge 570 US plus local taxes. We try to keep the fee as low as we can um, to give that um, comprehensive report. Um, and it seems to be getting a lot of traction. We've been marketing mainly in Western Canada uh, for now, uh, but we do consider the States to be a much more important market just because of the size of it. Um, and people are more litigious in the States than they are in Canada. Interestingly enough, you know, Tommy, the settlements at the end of the day, uh, despite the difference in the insurance companies and so on, but they do talk, of course, they share settlements in quantum. They know what they're prepared to pay. But the settlements on average at the end of the day in Canada and the States, if it ever gets to court, and there is a recognition of the doctor being at fault, um, it averages around $300,000, something like that.
Jeez. How do I get some of this? You think I could fund the
Well,
podcast off a malpractice case? Like whatever. What's the what's the highest probability of malpractice? Do I go break my leg and purposely go to a doctor who's busy? Are there certain hospitals that have the highest? Because I'm at my wit's end on how to fund this podcast. You maybe shouldn't answer that legally. I don't need somebody digging this up in 10 years and going, "This is why I'm suing Dr. Hodkinson." That's kind of where
well,
I am. I feel like I missed out on the USAID funding. I certainly haven't gotten any help from the algorithm because I'm a straight white male who believes in God, loves America, and has blue eyes. So I get it. I'm Satan incarnate. I'm kind of at my wit's end on how to fund the podcast, and I'm starting to think the only way, other than joining a Mexican cartel and moving dump trucks of cocaine across the southern border, is as a nice malpractice suit, and I don't know which one I should go with.
yeah, decision points. I would reject all of the above, Tommy, if I were you. And
No, I will.
uh, you're in I mean, being in the States right now must be really exciting because
It is. No, it is.
there's so many things going on that can have a positive impact on an individual's economic situation.
Hmm.
Um, Cost of energy, for example, is absolutely critical. So I envy you. Um, I wish I was. Maybe you'd like to sponsor me,
Dude,
Tommy.
I'll divorce your wife temporarily. I'll marry you. You come down here, and then I'll divorce you. I don't give me a kickback. If you can't tell, this has been weighing on me lately on how do I make the podcast, but to not completely deviate and turn this into a therapy session where I scream about the podcast. Um, Back to what you were saying about settlement. What is that in relation to this, like Canada, the U.S.? You said 300,000 or 370,000. Is that what you said? 370 or 300?
Yeah, there's a big discount, of course, in the currency exchange. That's because of the mad way this country's been administered over the last couple of decades. It's the Socialist Republic of Canada, you know,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I mean, if this, let's just go back to COVID vaccines, COVID injuries, because those are all the original episodes you and I did. I think specifically about like micro clotting. Do you think we're gonna? Because if that turns into like a malpractice thing in the U.S.,
Oh, totally, totally.
that would
Massive,
be.
massive.
But we already are starting to see what you could loosely categorize as the beginnings of that in terms of the military. They're, rehiring, they're undoing the dishonorable discharges, and I think even doing back pay. Those are the first steps, which even just a couple of years ago would have seemed impossible. It seems like in terms of just, probability and nothing more, like an electron shell, just let's just look at probability. We are moving from a zone of that will never happen to it could happen. If something that size happens, the number of people that got that vaccine, how did that's not a normal that's not like a normal case. That's
No, it's
you're talking about like shifting the treasury levels of first world nations.
you might say drawing a leaf out of Fannie Mae and and big banks, too big to fail, too big to fess up.
Lehman Brothers, yeah.
What I think is going to happen, despite um, uh, RFK and Jay Bhattacharya, who really know exactly what's been going on, um, what I think is going to happen is not the big mea culpa, we were wrong, but a more likely reaction is going to be to withdraw the vaccines from the market because of inadequate safety data. Um, and perhaps the PrEP Act might be revoked, which would, of course, give Big Pharma second thoughts for trying to repeat this idiocy that took place.
Hmm.
We'll have to wait and see. That you see, there's going to be a very silent but vigorous debate between Trump, or maybe more specifically Susan Wiles, his chief of staff, who used to be a lobbyist for Big Pharma.
Yeah.
As
Didn't
a,
he
as
just name who did Trump just I'll look it up. Who did Trump just name, I think yesterday? He named
oh,
somebody.
for the CDC,
Yeah, who had been pushing COVID vaccines as late as October of last year.
right? Yeah, there've been some strange choices.
Trump CDC, Susan Maneras.
The guy that should have got that job, of course, was there's some excellent contenders. Lombardo, the
Joe
Florida
Lapato, yeah, I've had him on here.
Surgeon General, Peter McCullough.
Yes.
There were some excellent choices there.
Susan Maneras.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Trump picks acting CDC director Susan Maneras, who was, yeah, she was pushing the vaccine as late as
yeah.
October of last year.
The story with her is that she was chosen because of her expertise in AI and its applications to medicine, which are absolutely massive.
Yeah.
I could see that expertise being desirable. Whether she gets squished by RFK on vaccines remains to be seen. But here's my point about the debate. You know, Trump would have told Kennedy, listen, here's the deal. Uh, there's a no-go zone on vaccine injuries. That's a no-go zone. If you wanted to maintain the relationship, let's just make that very clear from the start.
Uh,
Um, that doesn't mean to say he's going to be inactive, but you know, it's almost prostituting himself going along with that, as opposed to quitting. I think he'll see it as the noble thing to do because of it'll be offset by all the other good things that he will be doing on future vaccine trials, on the quality of food, and so on. It'll be dressed up as the greater good. Let's not look back. Let's look forward. This'll never happen again, kind of deal. I think
yeah,
that's how he'll try and get off the hook.
yeah, and I'm really torn on not on what should be done in terms of kind of being an adult about it. It's like if
You
you're a
see,
kid, it's sorry, if you're like a kid and you find out your parents lie to you, oh, I cannot, and you get older, you're like, yeah, you tell the kid to shut up and go to bed. The kid had it's should you have lied to him in a vacuum? No, but you're providing a home, a house, a happy, married parents and private school. Like, hey, shut up. And so part of me is like I understand that at that level of geopolitics and budgets and departments, it's a lot more gray. I get that the world isn't all Boy Scouts and how we do I'm aware the guys I've had on this show, CIA operatives. I'm aware it's not all
yeah,
kumbaya, and I have to try to be an adult about that. That being said, Trump's already done one term. He had a second one stolen from him. They tried to blow his head off. And we've seen what they tried to do with social media clampdown and vaccine passports. These people are demons from hell. You're never going to get this Overton window again, where Trump
right.
slides in, he brings in RFK instead of throwing him to the wolves. You have this thing to not touch certain topics, to me, is the height of cowardice. It's It's
But
where are
you
your
know,
balls?
the, politics is like this, in my opinion,
They're all
Tommy.
whores.
You
Sorry.
you you hold your hand out like this, and you say, "Is it enough? Is it enough?" You never get perfection in a politician. You never get anyone that does everything right according
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah.
There's always the trade-offs, the negotiations that go on behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And I'm still a rock solid Trumper, despite being intimately aware of the bad decisions that were made under Fauci and during his previous presidency. I, I'm I'm prepared to cut him slack on that, providing it never happens again, because of all the other good things that he's doing.
Yeah. No, and that's where I kind of go back to my first point where I'm like, it's like, now, this is a bold stance to defend the military industrial complex, but like I do get it. It's There's always going to be a hegemon. There's always going to be an empire. It's better to be the empire than wish you were the empire. There's no such thing as kumbaya. If you're going to have an empire, which God bless is the one in the United States, separated by two oceans, where we at least attempt, and I know it's not perfect, we at least attempt to, you're allowed to arm yourself and have free speech, and there's a million caveats to that. I get it. If you want to have something, or it's like, well, these politicians are getting kicked back. It's like, how do you think this works? You either do it the Soviet system where you put everyone against the wall and at first chance everyone defects from a pauper to an oligarch, or you have a system where other people get rich. Is it all good and above board? No. Does that guy deserve a fifth penthouse? Probably not. But if you want the most advanced weaponry in the world, hey, grow the fuck up. There are kickbacks. It's just what it is. It's not right, but there are kickbacks.
Yeah.
And that's how you get this thing. And it's Thomas Sowell. There are no solutions. There are only trade-offs.
Well, it's called real politic, isn't it?
Yes.
It's just
Yes.
it's the real world. It's
Yeah,
trade-offs.
it is. And it doesn't mean that you should abandon morals and ethics. That's not you also want to be careful of that. You don't want to drift so far off and go so
Right.
far through the rabbit hole that you become the evil dictator, right? Because then it's like, well, now you've become the thing that deserves to be destroyed. But there is also like, yeah, how do you think this works, man? Like,
Mhm.
how do you think that, like, and like in college, whenever we'd have huge parties at the frat house, you would pay like an off-duty cop to check IDs at the front. And what that meant is when the cops drove by, they'd see their buddy off duty and they go, oh, he's moonlighting. Yeah, we know everyone in there is drinking underage, but he's getting paid and he's probably getting. Hey, we're gonna do it anyway. We were gonna drink and light shit on fire anyway. At least it's kind of in a controlled area and there's a cop there. And it's so from there, I have to look at, I mean, if you and I go into the Oval Office and Trump takes us, turns off all the phones and he's like, "I'm doing this because, by doing this, yeah, I'm able to, I don't know, shift peace to Ukraine and we're not going into Taiwan and Taiwan's tied in with Pfizer and because of this deal, we're doing this. And I know 100 million people got fucked by this vaccine, but I'm delaying World War III, which would have killed 3 billion people. It probably is something. It probably is a devil's bargain once you get into that office. I don't imagine, right? Because it's everyone kicks it up the chain of command. And then as
Yep.
Harry Truman, famously said, the buck stops here. Well, someone
It's
has
the
to stop the buck, and Trump's dealing with the buck in the pharmaceutical industry, social media, big tech, AI, the cartels on the southern border, Israel, Ukraine, Taiwan, the EU. Are we gonna fucking take Canada? Yeah, I would imagine that there's a lot of bucks stopping there, and at a certain point, you go, well, what is the best decision for the best number of people? So I don't know. I
you
kind of
you
made my
use
point
the
and defeated it.
you use the word a bargain with the devil. I've got to send you I commissioned a, a retouched photograph of the Faustian
Faustian,
bargain.
I was wondering, is it Faustian? But I didn't say that
Faustian
because I wasn't
bargain.
sure if I was going to
And
use it correctly.
what it has is the devil with a um, a black hand and very long red fingernails, holding the hand of a white hand with a white sleeve, a doctor. And that's the Faustian bargain. It's a dramatic photograph that's been enhanced to show how medicine sold its soul for money.
What is the correct term of Faustian bargain? Like, what is the correct meaning? I've always heard it, but I've never used it because I don't understand it completely.
Well,
Does that mean like deal with the devil?
a deal with the devil. Yeah. Not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but
No, no, it's Faust. No, no, it's correct. Oh
Mephistopheles
yeah, yeah, yeah.
o- offered Faust magical knowledge for if he would prostitute himself, and he accepted the deal. It never materialized, and when he died, he was sent straight to hell. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, I find that in my own mind, that tightrope I try to walk, where on one hand you do have the sort of be an adult and understand that everything's gray areas. Everybody has at some form or another probably fought an addiction, probably not been the best boyfriend or girlfriend. Everyone's done something yeah, right. There is that, and that's I would say in a weird way, it's a form of empathy of understanding, right? And then there's the whole kind of grow up. Yeah, how do you think this stuff works? And
well,
the
I think that reality that we all have skeletons in our closet. That reality is what prevents good people from generally good people without really bad skeletons. It's the worry of the skeleton being disclosed in a political campaign when all
yeah,
kinds of muckraking goes on. No one really wants that, and you have to give it second thoughts. The other thing you have to give second thoughts to these days, if you enter politics, is violence. You may get knocked off, like the attempted assassination of Trump. You may have your house burned down. You may have your children kidnapped, whatever. There are so many awful ways, and especially if you start getting into very controversial issues about religion, for example, in many forms, you are setting yourself up for a very unpleasant outcome. And so if you're tackling that as a politician, as you know, wanting to win an election with someone else running the show that you object to for all kinds of good reasons, if you've got a better way of doing things, it's not just the skeletons that you have to be worried about, but it's also the the reality that you can't afford a security detail.
Yeah. No, that is well, that kind of actually comes back to the point I was gonna make is there's the there's the grow up viewpoint where you know it's not all perfect, right?
Mhm.
But then there is also the I don't even know how to word I guess like the ultimate in terms of there's a growing up level about X, Y, and Z. It's kind of like in World War II how like the FBI and the Department of Defense worked with the mobs in New York, and they said because they had a better eye on the ports than anything. It's the oldest. It's like one of the oldest rackets in the book, right? You just skip a little
Yeah,
off the top. They were
yeah,
like, "Hey, we know what you're doing. We know you're all criminals. Make sure no Nazis come through,
yeah,
and in turn, we'll let you kind of keep running your racket." And then I think after the war, we'll take your guy out of jail, but we'll deport him to Italy. But there's that moment of sort of being an adult, right? Because you're
yeah,
fighting World War II. Okay, sure. And there's gray areas and blah blah blah. But then, like you said, as soon as you die, you go straight to hell. There are certain levels to where like that gray area grow up, Thomas Sowell-esque logic doesn't work anymore because you could keep extending that logic and you could say Epstein Island, allegedly, right? That it was an intelligence operation run by the CIA and the Mossad to get politicians on camera having sex with underage people, specifically children, blackmail so horrific that they would do anything you told them to. Okay, let's just take that as a, and you could look at that and you'd probably have, I'm sure a lot of the people that did that were just pure psychopaths and pedophiles. You probably would have a couple people in there that were like, enables treaties and alliances that prevent World War III. So even
yeah,
though these children are getting raped, it's preventing the deaths of hundreds of millions. I look at that and I go, that's something that I don't think holds up after death. I think you die and God goes, yeah, you let the mob guys keep running the port, but I get it. Germany was about to get the bomb and we didn't know if they were going to nuke us. And ultimately it resulted in the greater good. And like, I'll give you a passing grade. There are certain levels though, where I think you go, no, 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 that's evil.
yeah, I know.
That was evil. And how else would the devil dress it up? The devil's not going to come to you and say, hey, have sex with that kid. They're going to dress it up as it's national security. And
Yeah,
so I have to be careful with that to bring it
I
full
agree.
circle to what you're
I
saying
agree.
about the security detail. We have to be ready to die and go, well, you know what? Maybe I will be killed, but I know it's the
Mhm.
right thing in the
Mhm.
eyes of God. That's
Let,
how
let
I
me
kind of look at it.
let me tell you a little example of how threats really work without being accused of anything that you could be arrested for. When I was thinking of starting a laboratory chain, as I'm a pathologist, as everyone knows, I was thinking of starting a pathology chain in the Philippines, and it would have been very successful for all kinds of reasons against the local laboratories that were running things. And it was almost at the point of launching when I had a conversation with someone who said, "You know what's going to happen, don't you, Roger? Are you prepared for this? You're going to get a call on your phone, and it will go something like this. I saw your daughter was wearing red socks today.
Yeah.
Click,
Yeah.
click." That gets your attention, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But getting back on topic though, Tommy, could I make a plug for a radio show that I do
Oh,
on
yeah.
this?
Yeah.
It's available in the States. It's run out of Edmonton, obviously. But if people were to tune in to a thing called sgfradio.ca, sgfradio.ca, every Saturday at 2 o'clock Mountain Time, I do a 1 hour show with some music. It's not just me talking, it's the radio host. It's a very general, wide-ranging discussion, not just about medical malpractice and vaccine injuries, but people will send in their concerns for discussion, not a live discussion, but we'll receive their concerns and choose three to discuss every Saturday. And if anyone wants to participate in that, you just send your questions into health@sgfradio.ca. And we'll choose the ones that we think are most interesting to talk about. And it'll be quite an informative. We just started. It's got getting great traction, um, and it's an informative show.
Absolutely. Um, yeah, the threat that I always think about that where, if you're worried about your own life, that's one thing. You're right, you could be worried, but you go, I know I'm doing the right thing in the eyes of God. I would also imagine if we can be so bold as to peer into God's mind or assume if they call and they go, "Hey, you better," let's say I had a son, and they go, "Hey, you're gonna end that podcast," and yeah, blah whatever. We saw your son's shoes at school today. I always wonder. I mean, like, if you have a child and you're their parent, I mean, let's just say in the eyes of God, I don't think I would fault anyone for dropping whatever fight they're doing. I really don't. And it's very easy to point and go, it's like right now, we're saying like, well, Trump should do this, that. He's the president, but listen, anyone with a brain cell knows that there are power factions either on par with or greater than the president, and they're not recognized. But at a certain point, you know, do you not get behind the scenes with Trump and go, yeah, they're going to kill my family if I do too much? I don't know if you can demand a sacrifice of others that you yourself are not willing to make. Now, if it's your own life and only your life,
Well, that question, of course, is the question
hmm,
that faced individual physicians with administering the COVID vaccine.
well, there you go. Well, I
You know,
can't be fired. I have a family to take care of. It's like, well, then how many people do you hurt with this who have families to take care of?
right. But the net result of that willingness to
Go along to get along.
go along, the net result of that has been a profound loss of trust in the medical profession that used to be the most trusted profession. We were rated at 70% trust rating before COVID. It's now dropped to 40%. Most people don't trust their doctor. It's a terrible consequence of those individual physicians who chose to go along with the flow. If we'd all stood up shoulder to shoulder and said, no, we won't do this, it undermines the very essence of the Hippocratic Oath. If we had done that, Tommy, all of us, this tragedy, 20 million deaths in the States from the vax, this would never have happened.
Yeah.
And the profession would have retained its integrity and its trust.
Yeah, yeah, it's a shitty dilemma. You might have a lot of people say, "Hey, no, if I get fired, I lose my like whatever. I'll carry that cross." But I have three kids, and yeah, man, that's it's a dark dilemma. Yeah, I don't. I think ultimately it would be you can't demand others to sacrifice what you haven't already or are truly willing to sacrifice yourself. Which is
Well,
it's
that title that we all use with pride, DR, doctor,
mhm.
that that was acquired, the trust of that was acquired over centuries. And I'll be very frank with you. I don't use it anymore. Um,
Huh.
I'm embarrassed.
Really.
Um, it it does not reflect. my moral compass anymore. And it's an enormous tragedy. You know, we were more trusted than the priest or the minister. When that consulting room door closed, you used to be able to say anything you wanted to the doctor and the doctor to you. And it was intensely confidential. It was all written on paper. There was no electronic record that someone could hack. Uh, it was between you and the doc. That's gone. And what will make that even worse, of course, is the AI that will be pushed by the new CDC director. Um, can I comment on that,
Yeah.
Tommy, for your listeners? Because this is coming, and you better be aware of it and prepared for it. The current iterations of AI have been shown to be demonstrably superior to a general practitioner, a family doctor, in diagnostics,
Specifically pathology, right?
in diagnosing a new patient with a new disorder. They've been shown to be superior in diagnostics, but even more superior when it comes to empathy because of all the canned comments that you can put into the closing of the exchange. So in the future, you won't even go to a GP's office. You'll log in on your computer and you'll have a conversation with in AI. And the reason that's going to take over is because even with today's iterations, it's superior. It will get rapidly even better. But more to the point, it's not about the quality of it, it's about the cost of it in a system that is massively over expensive. So, and I mean, it's going to be pennies a pop for a software that everyone uses to do that first triage compared with hundreds of dollars if you're paying a doctor or a nurse practitioner. So the writing's on the wall for general practice. It's going to be slaughtered because we can't afford to do it the traditional way.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of seems to be the inevitable march of all of it, though, is everything
And
being,
the net consequence of that, I'm not thinking of this as you know from a business perspective, but it does have consequences.
you have to think about it from a business perspective.
There will be
Yeah.
an escalation of medical malpractice when AI takes over. Because if you've been around the block as a seasoned doc, there can be there can be all kinds of clues that AI will not pick up on. The way you walk in the door, um,
Yeah.
whether you're smiling or not.
Yeah.
Are you sweating while you're telling me this? Um, you know, is there eye contact? Um, it's obviously inferior medicine, even though you can quantify it as picking up things that would otherwise be missed.
And then there might be people who never got to ever see a doctor and they'll take the shitty AI over the no medical care at all. And you can't really fault them for that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know.
it's unfortunate, but that's the way medicine is going to go. Um, what can we afford as opposed to what's the best?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think I have about as much of a grasp on that as I do how to do this podcast, which is barely anything. It's a magic 8 ball. I don't know, man. It's every, I mean, because I mean, I always used to joke about, back in college, like, I was like, yeah, one day, way down the road, AI will take over everything. And that's why I wanted to be a doctor, because my logic was by the time AI came for my job, it would have also taken every other job, which means if it was taking my job, I wouldn't be really worried about unemployment. I'd probably be worried about like the Terminator. And now 15 years has passed, and that's kind of where we are. So now I'm like, oh sh shit. That was like a crummy joke I used to tell, and now I'm like, yeah, it's here. I don't I don't know what survives. It might be nothing. It might be the end, and so they're gonna kill off all the humans. I think the only like remaining thing is creativity. The only is like a unique take. I feel like that's the only thing that will be the last island in human value from the idea of AI, which is isn't inherent. But
Tommy, Tommy, we're almost out of time, but there's one
yeah,
other very, very important issue that's a bit unrelated that I'd really like people to know about,
sure.
if I may
Yeah.
end on this. Um, I'm ending on it because it's much more important than anything else that we've discussed. Right now, there are two researchers, Dr. David Speaker in Canada and Dr. Kevin McKernan in the States, who are working on a very, very important, the most important medical experiment ever undertaken. And I'm talking here about what we call reverse transcription of the COVID vaccine into our DNA. Just very briefly, what that means is instead of the one-way track of DNA to RNA to protein, it goes upwards the other way.
Hmm.
And the DNA contaminating the vials and the modified mRNA of the vaccine, they are attempting to show with high probability of success in about 6 months that reverse transcription into spermatozoa actually has happened. Now, translation. That means the potential when that spermatozoon fertilizes an egg, which might also have been changed, but the spermatozoa are rapidly dividing, whereas eggs don't. A little girl is born with all the eggs she's going to have, and it's more likely to happen in a rapidly dividing cell.
Hmm.
But the big point is this:
Hereditary vaccine
if
and
that is shown to have happened, we'll have to quantify it. How often does it happen? Where does it happen? What genes it is next to, et cetera, et cetera. But when that is shown to have happened, Tommy, translation, we will have changed the human genome for absolutely no reason forever because it will be transgenerational from child to child to child. That is not just massively disturbing, but even more disturbing is that we will not know the consequences of it for 20 or so years, the fertility cycle. And that is Nobel Prize worthy discovery, obviously. It's almost certain to be shown to be the case because it's already been shown in a petri dish with malignant cells. And we already know that 8% of our genome is viral in origin from viruses that have managed to do that in our evolutionary history. 8% of our genes are viral in origin. It's happened repeatedly over time. So it's almost certain that they're going to demonstrate that. And when it's published, Tommy, and the likes of me and others articulate that in lay language, be prepared for a scale of revulsion in the general public that is currently unimaginable. That humanity has been changed forever for absolutely no reason.
unless, of course, it was intentional.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
No, I,
But
I I know you don't. You voiced that before. I'm just as an idea. If this has happened,
you
it's like when someone jumps the fence at the White House and runs at the White House. Most of the time, it's a crazy person.
know,
You do have to consider, though, if it's a probe to see defenses for an upcoming attack. When
you
something as unique as this happens, I'm with you. I'm not saying it's intentional. I don't think it can be thrown off the table, though. When you look at something that profound, you have to go, was that really just a kid on a bike that accidentally rode onto the property of the ICBM silo? or
Yeah.
was that a foreign asset? You do have
Yeah.
to consider that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know. And it.
No, it would have been realized as a theoretical risk, but the greed involved made them continue.
Well, ending on a cheery note. Maybe the AI is killing us. I don't know. Um, Dr. Hodkinson, it was great to have you back on, man. I think you sent me the link, but I'll put the link to the new company in the description. People can go check
Sure.
it out.
And
And
you know what? I'll quite separate from malpractice check. I don't want to be associated with the devil shaking my hand. Um, I I will send you that most dramatic
I'll make it
photograph.
the thumbnail. Email it to me. I'll make it the thumbnail for the episode.
If I haven't sent it to you, I'll send it to you, and
Yeah, send it
it
right now.
would make a fantastic backdrop for
Yeah,
your your chats, you know.
yeah. No, I send it to me right now, and I'll make it the thingy. But yeah, Dr. Hodgson, as always, it was a great catch up, dude.
Well,
We're gonna make it. I don't know
stay
how.
strong.
You too. We're gonna make it. I don't know how. To the glory of
Humanity's
God.
been through worse than this.
Amen. We'll find a way, even if we don't know how. Well, we've never known how. No one knew what they were doing, sailing across the oceans. Yeah, it might be Earth. The Earth might be flat. We're gonna see if it's not. What if it is? I don't know. It'll fucking fall off. Yeah, I mean that's the entire world has just been making shit up. All right, Dr. Hodgkinson, as always, dude. Love chatting with you. Thank you so much for your time.